السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستهديه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله بلغ الرسالة وأدى الأمانة ونصح الأمة فكشف الله به الغمة وجاهد في الله حق جهاده حتى أتاه اليقين. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء، واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم، ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. ثم أما بعد، فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله، وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم، وشر الأمور محدثاتها، وكل محدثة بدعة، وكل بدعة ضلالة، وكل ضلالة في النار. ثم أما بعد. The topic of this khutbah is Ramadan is the month of the inauguration of this ummah. Ramadan is the month of the inauguration of this ummah, and I'll explain a little bit more about that as we analyze the verses of Surah Al-Baqarah. But the first scene I want to give is a scene of somewhat of an action movie, and this scene has two men in the desert that have just escaped Mecca, and they're wanted by everyone in Mecca. All the Sanadid of Quraysh, the leadership of Mecca, is after them, and they're trying to get them and to stop them because they're afraid that if the Prophet ﷺ and Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu complete the hijrah to Medina, when they go to Medina, they're going to establish a new Muslim state. And this new Muslim state is going to be a threat to the Quraysh sitting in Mecca that have fought this deen for years on end. So the Prophet ﷺ and Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu are in the desert. And they've left the ghar that they were hiding in for 3 days. And Quraysh has sent after them what's known in modern day terminology as bounty hunters. Bounty hunters, you know, you see them on TV, you see them in movies, and they've given the prize of 100 camels, which is a huge amount of money. It's like $10 million for the capture, dead or alive, of Muhammad ﷺ and Sayyidina Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu. And they leave and they're in the desert. And they're now heading towards Medina. And they're not taking the normal highway to Medina. Believe it or not, even in those days, they had highways. They had roads that were commonly followed when they traveled between the different cities. They took a different route. They took the side roads to get to Medina. And we know that they went to the south first before they turned, and then they started to head north to Medina from Mecca. One of the most famous bounty hunters, his name was Suraqa ibn Malik. And he was the best of the best. Like if you think of the movies of the Wild West, the guy that had the 2 guns and the samurai sword and was outclassed anyone, that was him. His name was Suraqa ibn Malik radiallahu anhu, because later he accepted Islam. And Sayyidina Suraqa ibn Malik was so clever. He knew the steps that they took weren't the normal highway. And he actually misled the other bounty hunters because he wanted the capture and the reward of Muhammad ﷺ. He wanted the money for himself. And so he was an excellent tracker, and he was an excellent fighter with the sword and the spear. And he sees them in the desert, and he tells the story later on in a long hadith. And he said, I knew that those were the 2 men I was looking for. And he goes on to say, I'm an excellent horseman. He's an excellent horseman. Like he's on his horse. Think of a guy on his motorcycle today. He never falls, never trips. He can do all kinds of stunts with his horse. And he's approaching the Prophet ﷺ and Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu at full speed. And he says, now is my opportunity, I've got them. And every time he'd approach, the horse would unexplainably stumble and he'd fall off his horse. It's like the mistake of a beginner. Like if you're still learning how to drive, that's the kind of mistake that you'd make. So he gets up again, and he attacks again, and he falls again. And he has no explanation as to why he's falling off his horse. He can't get close enough to capture them or throw his spear. So he attacks again, and he falls again. And then he says in the long hadith, he says, فَعَلِمْتُ, I knew. إِنَّهُمْ مَمْنُعُونَ, they were protected by a force that I did not understand. He says, I knew within my heart that they were protected by something I couldn't defend. So you know what he does, the Sahabi radiallahu anhu, he's not a Muslim at the time. He goes and he gets off his horse and he surrenders to the Prophet ﷺ and Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. He surrenders. He stops and he gets off his horse. He throws down his weapons and he basically says, don't harm me. Don't harm me. And the Prophet ﷺ says, we won't harm you. Don't tell people where you saw us. And he gives them a promise. He tells him, كَيْفَ بِكَ يَا سُرَاقَ, how would you feel? Suraqa is an Arab from the desert. He's good at his horse and he's good at his spear, but he's a very poor person. He's a very poor person. He's on the lowest rung of society. He says, how would you feel if one day you had the bracelets of Kisra, around your hands? How would you feel? So the man lost his mind. He said, Kisra, he said, you really mean, Kisra, the king of Persia? That Kisra, do you really mean that? And subhanAllah, years later, during the time of the Khilafah of Sayyidina Umar ibn al-Khattab in Medina, after the state was established, in fact, the bracelets of Kisra came as bounties of war. And Sayyidina Umar ibn al-Khattab called Suraqa, and he gave it to him, and he said, what did the Prophet ﷺ promise you? He said he promised him, and he said, this is to show that the promise of Muhammad ﷺ is the truth. So the hijrah to Medina finishes. And it's now 17 months later, 16 or 17 months according to most of the books of Seerah. And the Prophet ﷺ is praying in which direction? He's praying in the direction of Jerusalem, Baytul Maqdis. Baytul Maqdis. Many of us may not know, the first part of da'wah, the Prophet ﷺ and the Sahaba were praying towards Jerusalem. When he was in Mecca, he could put the Kaaba between him and between Jerusalem and be praying to both. But he went to Medina, he couldn't do that. because Jerusalem is to the north and the Kaaba is to the south. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reveals verses in the Holy Quran. And these verses in the Holy Quran basically say, change your direction of prayer from the direction of Jerusalem to the direction of Mecca. In these verses, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala establishes a capital for this ummah. The everlasting capital of the Muslim ummah is Mecca. Regardless of the political situation and who's where and who's doing what, forever and ever and ever. If you're a Muslim from the US, if you're a Muslim from Mexico, if you're a Muslim from Indonesia, the capital of the Muslim ummah until the Day of Judgment will be Mecca. So number one, the identity of this ummah is being established in the sense of a change of capital. What happens next in Medina is really interesting, because when the capital changes to Mecca, there's an uproar in Medina. Who's the uproar by? It's by the Jews. It's by the Jews. The Jews are upset that the direction of the Qibla changed. سيقول السفهاء من الناس ما ولاهم عن قبلتهم. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Holy Quran, the fools among people will ask, what made them change their Qibla? What made them change it? Why would they care? You know, many of us have Christian friends, Jewish friends, maybe Hindu friends, Sikh friends. When they see you pray, whether you're praying north, east, south, west, do they care? They don't care. But why did they care? They cared because they knew that this was the message of truth. They knew. And they were okay because they messed around with previous prophets so long as he was praying in the same direction as they were praying. When Sayyidina Muhammad went to Medina, by the way, many of you know this from the story, Huyay ibn Akhtab, who was the leader of the Jews, one of the most learned Jews that was there, when he met the Prophet ﷺ and he met another one of the ulama of the Jews, there's a dialogue that occurs between them. And he says, Ahuwa, is it really him? Is it really the messenger we're waiting for? Because they were waiting for a messenger at the time. They were waiting for him to come up in this general area. But they didn't know that he was going to come from the Banu Ismail. They didn't accept that he was from the Banu Ismail. They thought he was going to come from their lineage. Their lineage. So in changing the direction of the Qibla, now more and more of the responsibility of mankind is going to this ummah, this new ummah. This new ummah. So the other thing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that teaches us, what makes us unique as an ummah, and this is in the second chapter of the Holy Quran, the first few verses, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Alif Lam Mim. ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ. This book, this Quran that you have, there is no doubt in this book. This is the book of guidance for all mankind, for all humanity, until the Day of Judgment. Wallahi, if NASA one day finds people on the moon or people on some other planet, they will still be required to follow the Holy Quran. They will still be required to follow the Holy Quran. The jinn, when they met the Prophet ﷺ, went back to their people and they said, Inna sami'na Qur'anan ajaba. We have heard an amazing Quran from a new messenger. This is the jinn. This isn't even a being that we see. This isn't even a physical being in the way that we think about it. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reveals the new constitution to this ummah, which is the Holy Quran. So now the question becomes, when we have a new capital, which is Mecca, and we have a new constitution, which is the Holy Quran, what happens? We inaugurate an ummah. This is the inauguration of the ummah of Islam. New constitution in the Holy Quran, new capital, which is Mecca, a new ummah is born, which is this ummah, the ummah of Muhammad ﷺ. And we should all be, wallahi, so lucky that we can claim to be part of this ummah. It is enough to be walking on this planet today and saying, La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. We don't know how lucky we are that we've made it to this month where we can fast. We don't know how lucky. More on this to come. So the inauguration of this ummah, you know, we're living in the US, today is July the 4th, they celebrate the Declaration of Independence, the inauguration of the US nation. You know, in France, it's July the 14th. In India and Pakistan, I think it's August the 14th and the 15th. Each nation has a date. Our date is Ramadan. We celebrate the inauguration of the Muslim Ummah in Ramadan. In Ramadan. You know, when the Sahaba started to fast, if you look at the verses of fasting in the Holy Quran, right? Chapter 2, later on, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala changed the direction to Mecca, and then He says, Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu, O you who believe, كتب عليكم الصيام كما كتب على الذين من قبلكم. Fasting has been made law upon you like it has been made law before you. The Jews were also fasting. The first set of fasting that the Muslims did was just like the Jews. It was just like the Jews. It was 9 days or 10 days every month. Okay? And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives certain provisions. This is the first form of fasting. We can know this. He says, فَمَنْ كَانَ مِنْكُمْ مَرِيضًا أَوْ عَلَى سَفَرٍ فَعِدَّةٌ مِنْ أَيَّامٍ أُخَرَ. If you're sick or if you're traveling, you can make up for it. وَعَلَى الَّذِينَ يُطِيقُونَهُ فِدْيَةٌ طَعَامُ مِسْكِينٍ وَأَنْ تَصُومُوا خَيْرًا لَكُمْ إِن كُنْتُمْ تَعْلَمُونَ. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, I've given you fasting so that you can attain taqwa. If you're fasting or if you're traveling or you're sick, you can make it up. And by the way, if you just don't feel like it, you can make it up by feeding the poor. All of this is taken out later, by the way. Okay? So this is the first form of fasting. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the second verse says, this is now the verse of Quran, of Ramadan. This is the only verse of Quran that speaks about Ramadan. The only verse. Ramadan is mentioned once in the whole Quran. Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu. I'm sorry, he says, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Shahru Ramadan alladhi unzila fihi al-Quran. Shahru Ramadan is so special because your constitution, which is Quran, was revealed. That's the reason why it's special. You know, oftentimes when we think as a Muslim nation, Ramadan is coming, what's the first thing that comes to mind? Oh, we have to fast. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ramadan is special because Ramadan is the month in which Quran was revealed. That's the reason why Ramadan is special. Shahr Ramadan alladhi unzila fihi al-Quran. Hudan lin-nas, as a guidance to mankind. وَبَيِّنَاتٍ مِنَ الْهُدَى وَالْفُرْقَانِ. And clear proof of evidence. When you take this guidance and you explain it to other people, they're going to ask you, show me the proof. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَبَيِّنَاتٍ. And it has the proof in it. Min al-huda, of guidance. Wal-furqan, and a clear division between right and wrong. We live in a society today in the 21st century. I was talking about this a couple of days ago. Many people may not know this. There are more refugees of war today in the 21st century than there was in World War I, World War II combined. The level of wealth and the level of poverty all over the world is actually far off in balance than it was way before, when we watch movies and we say, oh, they're so backward. The standards of how people live, how we get married, the notion of a family, all those things, Furqan, this is what Furqan is. It sets the standard for righteousness and for wrong. And mankind needs it. In the 21st century, we have people that worship trees and rocks, that worship planets, that worship animals. 21st century, with all this knowledge that we have. I was watching a show. Well, I came in on the last part of it, and this particular show was talking about all the knowledge that mankind has accumulated, and it was a beautiful display of knowledge management. It was actually on the Science Channel, and they said the amount of knowledge it would take to create the Earth, and they had a picture of the Earth and everything on it, and they drew a picture of, you know, those Russian dolls that you open up. You know those Russian dolls, like you open up a big doll into a little doll, and it would fit in one Russian doll. The knowledge that it takes to create the galaxy is a bigger doll. Multiple galaxies, a bigger doll. The whole universe, a bigger doll, and so on and so forth. The scientist that came up with this theory, and he's a Nobel Prize winner from Sweden, he's having an interview. He's a non-Muslim. He's having an interview with the TV reporter, and he says to him a very interesting fact. This is a non-Muslim. This wasn't a program paid by Muslims or anything. He says to him, at some point in time, with all this knowledge that exists around creation, we have to believe as an intelligent being that someone or something started this whole thing. This is the notion of Tawheed. This is what we mean when we say La ilaha illallah. Allah, the creator of the galaxy, the creator of the planets, the creator of everything around us. When we break our iftar and we put some water in the faucet and we say Bismillah and we start to drink, that water that goes into your throat, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knew which cloud would have this water rain, which drops would fall into that river, which drops from that river go into that station, that flow through the pipe, that falls into the cup, that goes into your throat at that second. This is the Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we worship. So this scientist was saying, we can only say that there's a single creator that created all of this. And he also says, if we find other intelligent beings that function in the way that we do, that have a brain, is kind of what he was saying, they would come to the same conclusion about knowledge. That all this knowledge that we have was started with a single creator. This is the conclusion that he makes. The last 15 minutes of the show. So anyway, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, as a guidance to all mankind. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَمَنْ شَهِدَ مِنْكُمُ الشَّهْرَ فَلْيَصُمْهُ. فَمَنْ شَهِدَ مِنْكُمُ الشَّهْرَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala suggests here that those of you that get to the month, those of you that are lucky enough to make it to the month, some of us are not so lucky. How many people did we know that are no longer here, that were here last Ramadan? In fact, that were here a few weeks before Ramadan, that are no longer here. If you make it to the month, if you're in the month of Ramadan, you should feel lucky. You should feel very fortunate and be thankful that we even made it to the month of Ramadan. فَمَنْ شَهِدَ مِنْكُمُ الشَّهْرَ. Not everyone will make it to the month. فَلْيَصُمْهُ. Let them fast the whole month. Is it easier or harder? They were fasting 9 days or 10 days, now they're fasting for a month. It's harder. It's harder. It's harder to fast the whole month. وَمَنْ كَانَ مُرِيدًا أَوْ عَلَى سَفَرٍ فَعِدَّةٌ مِنْ أَيَامٍ أُخْرَى. And if you're traveling or sick, then you make it up on other days. Then you make it up on other days. So now, if you're thinking of the situation that they were in, you could pay and get out of it. You could fast and make up for the days. It was only 9 or 10 and now it's a whole month. It's harder. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says what? Immediately after, يُرِيدُ اللَّهُ بِكُمُ الْيُسْرِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to make it easy for you, not harder. Even though things may look harder, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is actually making it easier. How is He making it easier? How is He making it easier? Very quickly, I'll give you 2 ways. One way, today alhamdulillah is the 7th day of the month, right? We're approaching the first week. How does it feel to each of us today to fast? It feels pretty easy. If you're honest between you and yourself, yeah, you still get tired by the end of the day. You know, I drank 17 cups of coffee every day, so I still feel the caffeine withdrawals. But alhamdulillah, it feels easy. Who makes it easy? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes it easy. It's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that makes the month easy. That's who makes it easy. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows that it's tough. He said, those people in Seattle, they're going to be going, oh man, I have 19 hours to go. I have, 9:15 and then 3 o'clock and Taraweeh finishes at 12:30. By the time I'm home, it's 1. I have to be at work at 9. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, don't worry about it. I will make it easy. I'll take care of that. That's one way. But the second way in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes it easy. So I'll tell you a personal story. Most of my life I lived outside of Egypt. I went back to Egypt in the 8th grade. I didn't speak Arabic. My parents put me in an intensive Arabic class. That I learned from Alif, Ba. Like I was an 8th grade student. All my friends were far more advanced than I was. And I hated studying this Arabic in summertime because all my friends were playing. And my parents kept saying to me, we want to make it easy for you when you go to school. You're going to 9th grade, you're going to be a big boy. We want to make it easy for you. You're taking the summer class to make it easy. Now I get it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, He wants to make it easy for us when? On the Day of Judgment. On the Day of Judgment it'll be easy. There's a special door. For those of us that travel a lot, when you go to the airport, if you're like a medallion, frequent flyer with Delta, and some special silver, platinum status with American or whatever, they say, sir, please, you go ahead and board, and you're going to get upgraded, by the way, as well. Everyone else, wait, this person is special. They fly with us a lot, so you get to sit in the back of the plane. This person's going way to the front of the plane. And by the way, they're boarding first. They don't have to fight over the cabins or the luggage compartments. They're going to get all that priority. On the Day of Judgment, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, the Prophet ﷺ says, there's a special door. It's that kind of first class door, only for those that fasted in dunya. Only for those that fasted in dunya. A special door called Ar-Rayyan. Ar-Rayyan. Everyone else take a step back. These are for the people that fasted. These are for the people that were in Seattle the summer of 2014. Let them in. Insha'Allah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us amongst those people. Special access to Jannah from a special door before anyone else that goes to Jannah. Special access. Insha'Allah, all of us. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, يُرِيدُ اللَّهُ بِكُمُ الْيُسْرَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to make it easy for you. The other thing that we learn from these verses, this is even before fasting, we must do da'wah in this month. We must prove, when people say we're terrorists, we must prove to them we're not terrorists. Our job is not to convert anyone. Our job is to inform people about Islam. Inform people about Islam. The Prophet ﷺ says, tell them about me, even if it's a single verse. If it's a single thing that you know, let people know. Don't say you're not knowledgeable. This is no longer the function of shuyukh and mashayikh. With all due respect, every one of us is a representative of Islam. Every single one of us. The simple fact that you're in this country and at least you speak some English makes it an obligation on you to speak to others about this religion. You don't have to get into fiqh rulings, but you have to tell them about this religion. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم فاستغفروه إنه الغفور الرحيم. الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه ثم أما بعد. The topic of this khutbah is Ramadan, the inauguration of this ummah. And I explained that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Al-Baqarah changes the direction of the prayer to Mecca, and then also makes it clear that the new constitution of this ummah is the Holy Quran, and basically gives us the month of Ramadan to celebrate the inauguration of this ummah. And when this ummah celebrates, we don't celebrate for a single day, like a lot of nations, we celebrate for a whole month. And how do we celebrate? We celebrate by fasting during the month. This is the essence of the month of Ramadan. We're celebrating the birth of this ummah of La ilaha illallah. It doesn't matter whether we come from Nigeria or whether we come from Egypt or whether we come from Pakistan, we are a single ummah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنَّ هَذِهِ أُمَّتُكُمْ أُمَّةٌ وَاحِدَةٌ وَأَنَا رَبُّكُمْ فَاعْبُدُونَ. This is most certainly your nation, a single nation, and I am your Lord, so worship me. I am your Lord, so worship me. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says Ramadan is made to make it easy. Now the other thing to know about Ramadan, taqwa, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, I'm teaching you to fast because of taqwa. Taqwa is mentioned in the Holy Quran more than 200 times. Taqwa in Arabic means, awareness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Awareness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in our actions. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions taqwa more than 200 times. لَعَلَّهُمْ يَتَّقُونَ فَلْيَتَّقُوا اللَّهِ. In ittaqu, all these verses have taqwa. Because like parents, when we tell our children to do their homework, they don't listen the first time. Do your homework, do your homework, do your homework. We don't get to taqwa. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala repeats it so many times. Ramadan is mentioned and fasting is mentioned once. When you have someone enter the police force, alhamdulillah, we're all fasting. When someone enters the police force, they don't just send them after the bad guys. They go into the building, in the movies, and they have these shades of the bad guys, but they're not really shooting at them, right? They're going into the building and they're aiming, and they say, train to see how you do, so that when you go out into the real world, you'll be fine. You'll be trained up. Or a fireman, right? Or an engineer. You have to study 4 years and then you get your degree. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala locks up shaitan. The number one enemy. فَبِعِزَّتِكَ لَأَغْوِيَنَّهُمْ أَجْمَعِينَ. The number one enemy of humanity is shaitan. The number one enemy. Number one, number two, number three is shaitan. On his resume, he made millions of people go into hellfire on his resume today. Millions and billions of human beings into hellfire because of shaitan. These are his results. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes up this number one enemy and locks them up. It's our month of training without being hurt. We can train without being hurt. There's nothing to be afraid of. Brothers, can I ask you to take a step forward because there's some brothers here standing. Let's accommodate them, inshallah. Come on in, Yaki. There's space, inshallah. Come on in. Don't stand. Just please move the line forward so they can sit down. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us that month like a month of training. He says, go into this month and don't worry about getting hurt. You're not going to get hurt in your training because your enemy is locked up. Your enemies, enjoy your training so that when you come out from the end of the month, you'll be in good shape. Come on in, there's space up here, inshallah. Second row, third row, there's plenty of space, inshallah, to accommodate everyone. Come on into this month of training so that after the month you're okay. Now, when you're studying engineering and you're studying a 4-year degree, can you get your degree in 2 years? No. You have to finish the 4 years to get your degree, to be a certified engineer. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلِتُكْمِلُوا الْعِدَّةَ. Complete the month, complete your training. And when you complete your training, what do you have at the end? When you complete your degree, and you get up on the stage and say, congratulations, Muhammad, congratulations, Fatima, here's your degree. This certifies that you've studied engineering, and you're now a computer programmer, or you're an aeronautical engineer, or you're a doctor, or you're an accountant, or whatever you're studying to become. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, at the end of the month, there's a celebration. وَلِتُكَبِّرُوا اللَّهُ عَلَى مَا هَدَاكُمْ. And you will make takbir to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for this gift of Ramadan. So you're going to fast during the month and you're going to celebrate at the end of the month. You celebrate during the month by fasting, you celebrate at the end of the month by Eid. When it's time for Eid, my brothers and sisters, we must make everyone around us happy. This is the primary responsibility of the brothers. Buy gifts for your children. Buy gifts for the wife. Wife, do the same to the brothers. Make it a big deal for the children. A really big deal. Make it a big deal that this month has been completed. There are brothers and sisters amongst us that are adults. They're not young. They're not teens. They're not youth. Where it's the first time that they fast. The first time ever that they fast, they're fasting in Seattle in the middle of summer in 2014. And wallahi, you should talk to some of them. Wallahi, you should talk to some of them. You talk about their experiences and they say, you know, we never knew we could do it. Alhamdulillah, through the grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they're happy. They're not complaining, they're happy that they're fasting. First time. Grown adults, 30 years old. Not little kids, 6 or 7 or 8. Grown adults. First time ever that they're fasting. The last verse that I'm going to complete with, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the following verse very quickly, وَإِذَا سَأَلَكَ عِبَادِي عَنِّي فَإِنِّي قَرِيبٌ. He says to the Prophet ﷺ, you know, if you're at work and you get an appointment with the Vice President, what do they say? Sorry, the Vice President's busy until August. Come back on August the 15th and we'll give you 10 minutes at 7 in the morning. Because you're working according to his schedule, not your schedule. What's convenient for him, not what's convenient for you. Right? That's how it works in dunya when you want to meet someone important. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, when my servants, when my worshippers ask about me, when we ask about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, فَإِنِّي قَرِيبٌ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't use the royal inni. He uses فَإِنِّي قَرِيبٌ, like I'm your friend. I'm your buddy, I'm your friend. Qareeb means I'm so close to you. فَإِنِّي قَرِيبٌ. أُجِيبُ دَعْوَةَ الدَّاعِ إِذَا دَعَانِ. I will respond on an individual. You know when you meet people, I'm like this, and many of you may be like this as well. You meet people one year at a conference or in a business meeting, and then you meet them 6 months later, and I forget who I met. I may remember their face, but I don't know their name. And I go, yeah, I kind of know who you are. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أُجِيبُ دَعْوَةَ الدَّاعِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala responds immediately to whoever makes da'wah and knows every single person by name. Knows every single one. You ask for a job, you ask to get married, you ask for health, you ask for your father to come out of the hospital, you ask to go to Hajj, you ask for istighfar, you ask for this. He knows every single one. أُجِيبُ دَعْوَةَ الدَّاعِ. And when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ujibu, it's quick in response. Ujibu da'wat ad-da'i idha da'an. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the rest of the verse is even more beautiful. He says, فَلْيَسْتَجِيبُوا لِي. Come to me when you have time. فَلْيَسْتَجِيبُوا, this word in Arabic is so long, because it means take your time, and when you're ready, I'll be waiting. This is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying. When you're ready, I'm waiting for you. فَلْيَسْتَجِيبُوا لِي. My door is always open. It's up to us to get the appointment. It's up to us to get the time. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala inshallah make this Ramadan a blessed month for us. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala inshallah accept for us. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us one ummah that loves each other for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us those from enter Jannah through the bab of Rayyan. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala ali Muhammad kama sallayta ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim fil alamin innaka Hamidum Majid. Allahumma barik ala Muhammad wa ala ali Muhammad kama barakta ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim fil alamin innaka Hamidum Majid. Allahumma ighfir lil muslimina wal muslimat wal mu'minina wal mu'minat al ahya'i wal amwat إنك سميع قريب مجيب الدعوات. اللهم اغفر لنا ذنوبنا وإسرافنا في أمرنا وثبت أقدامنا وانصرنا على القوم الكافرين. اللهم أرنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه وأرنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه. اللهم نسألك رضاك والجنة ونعوذ بك من سخطك والنار. اللهم إنك عفو تحب العفو فاعف عنا يا كريم. اللهم تقبل منا صيامنا وتقبل منا ركوعنا وتقبل منا سجودنا وتقبل منا تلاوتنا. اللهم تقبل منا وتقبلنا يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم أدخلنا الجنة من باب الريان يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم هون علينا في سكرات الموت. اللهم هون علينا في سكرات الموت. اللهم اجعل قبورنا روضة من رياض الجنة. اللهم ثبتنا وقت السؤال في القبر. اللهم ادخلنا الجنة بدون سابقة عذاب. اللهم ثقل موازيننا يوم القيامة. اللهم اسقنا من حوض نبيك صلى الله عليه وسلم شربة لا نظمأ بعدها أبدا. اللهم نسألك الدرجات العلى من الجنة. اللهم متعنا بالنظر إلى وجهك الكريم. وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين وأقم الصلاة.